You went live. Greetings, unsettled souls. Welcome to the correct music. Syncing of low def here and high def up there. For those of you on low def who don't know what I was talking about, you used to get like a little ding, and now, I don't know, they've kind of pussied out. You don't get anything. You have no idea when you're going to go live at all. So you're here recording. Hope for the best. You got to love Google. Friends, you didn't come to hear about the intricacies of how Google was failing. No, you came for the latest in political commentary, and you're going to get it here. I have two schools of people here, those that are thrilled with my Donald Trump coverage, and those who are, well, less than thrilled by it. So what we're going to do is put off the Donald Trump update to a little bit later in the show, and I'm going to go ahead and focus on other things for a minute. Now, this is where you would expect me to be the typical let's attack the youth person here. But I have a take on this that I think is slightly different from what you're going to expect, because as a Gen Xer, I hate my generation. My generation took the world back. Okay, we took the world. We took over radio. We brought new voices in. We bought not just one or two new music styles, but alternative, before it became a catchphrase, meant a little bit of everything. We literally changed the world in a bigger way than anyone since the 60s, and promptly sold our 10-cent souls way quicker than the yuppies ever did. I detest my generation. So I'm not going to be one of those people that are attacking the younger generation, because I know my generation never saw an opportunity or a chance to be anything. America was long sold down the river, long before I ever became old enough to have ever had an opportunity in it to start with. So, I mean, you got to remember, I'm only 43, so when I was coming up, there was outsourcing beginning, the wonders of NAFTA, the wonders of the New World Order that Bush gave us, and the internet. And of course, the internet was what carried Generation X at all. Otherwise, they would have been in the same screwed up situation that the millennials are in. And don't be fooled. Bill Clinton did not bring great prosperity to anybody. All he brought was debt. He lucked in to the internet. It happened to happen during his run. He had nothing to do with it. No, Al Gore did not invent the internet, even though he says he did. Millennials have never had an opportunity either. Now, I'm going to go into this slightly different than they're saying. Now, am I saying that I think the millennials are the great generation? No, I think they are dumb idiots. Why? Because Gen Xers before them were dumb idiots. We let the system happen. We let Bush happen. We let Obama happen. Okay? We are the ones who allowed Obama, Common Core, to destroy the educational structure of the country. We are the ones who did not teach our children anything, largely because we didn't know anything, because we came through a stupid generation. And again, I'm not necessarily including myself here, but I'll speak as a whole generation. My generation are a bunch of idiots. I talk about things that matter, and they don't listen any more than the Gen Xers do. This is about, the millennials do. This is about divide and conquer. Let's keep the old apart from the young, and I'm not buying into it. My generation was utterly hosed, and so are the millennials. There's an update on this. It's freebeacon.com, Bill McMorris. A previous version of the article said that this study was conducted by researchers at Princeton. The researchers was done by an education nonprofit, I guess. American millennials are among the least skilled workers in the world, raising red flags about their ability to compete against their peers in other countries. But before we give this study too much credit, I'm going to go to screen share for those of you on low def. Let me ask you another question. We have set all the jobs and all the opportunities and all the hope for progress far away. So whereas maybe the great generation, the World War II generation, they came home from the war back when wars used to end, and took a job, say, at a steel factory. That job isn't around anymore. But if it had been, that was the job that your kids did. Yeah, my dad worked at this steel plant, and then I did. Okay, that ended with the baby boomers. Okay, that has not been the case at all. I remember when I was in grade school, they told us that those jobs weren't there anymore. So how are we going to compete? How are millennials going to compete with other workers? That doesn't make any sense. We don't have any jobs here for them to do. We have sent all those jobs away. And we call Donald Trump crazy when he points it out, right? Researchers from education nonprofit ETS compared test results of Americans with their peers in more than 20 advanced economies. The results pointed to an alarming trend as young workers and students between the ages of 16 to 34 lagged far behind their peers in countries like Japan and Sweden in mathematical understanding and literacy. Part of this is due to the incredibly misguided way that Obamacare teaches children. The second has to do with very bad management from the top, which is why we need to get rid of the Department of Education and let the states handle it, just like Ron Paul said. And lastly, it has to do with there are no jobs to train anyone at. We don't do anything here anymore in the country. These young adults, it says, on average, demonstrate relatively weak literacy skills. Now, see, that again is what happens. Why? Because we live in a system where 50 people own all the media companies. So you don't have true talent anymore. You can go back to the greatest generation, like Cab Calloway, Glenn Miller, all them. You can go to generation, the baby boomers. They had the Hendricks, they had Morrison, they had great literacy, great minds. They had TV shows with depth and even mysteries like ghost mysteries like Dark Shadows. Excellent, well written. People today, for the most part, wouldn't even be able to keep up with the dialogue that was in it. In the 80s, you had great lyrics. You had Iron Maiden out there writing lyrics about everything that's ever happened in history. You had people with amazing diction like Exodus. You don't have that now, not because the young generation is stupid. That's what every generation says. That's not true. That's BS. That's class. That's ageism. We're not doing that here. It has to do with good music has been negated and brought in place with cookie cutter, no talent music. And the good thing about if you hire someone like Drake or if you hire someone like Lady Gaga, they have no talent. So you can replace them with the very next Drake. Drake doesn't sell, you can go to Fetty Wap. Fetty Wap doesn't sell, you can go Lil Wayne. None of them have any talent, but they're able to be reboxed to people that don't know any better. And the reason they don't know any better is they've been dumbed down for the reasons that I just told you. Let's face it, it's a lot harder to replace a Jimi Hendrix than it is a Lil Wayne. There's no band to worry about. There's no talent to worry about. You just package ideas. And since the youth likes fun, then you just give them cookie cutter third grade lyrics and then wonder why they grow up to not know anything. And this is not just millennials. There are a lot of older people that come into the club where I work and they request this mind rot. And you can tell they're just as stupid as their kids. Their literacy, numeracy, problem solving, and technology rich environments compared to their international peers is lagging. Well, maybe that wouldn't be the case. But see, I went to school for interactive media technology, and my major was being sent away to other countries as I was majoring in it. Nobody here does technology anymore. Therefore, you can't get a job in it. Therefore, our next generation knows nothing about it because our country has sent it all away. So don't blame the youth for the fact that you didn't teach them a damn thing. How about that? How about we get that kind of real today on the correct views? Yeah, they're stupid. Of course they're stupid. They've been made stupid by a media that they trusted to teach them something and has failed them miserably. CBS, DFW, Parker County Swingers Club could be forced to reveal guest list. Now, the reason I put this on here is because things are done incrementally. And the reason that, and this ties into the first story, the reason that people don't catch it, they don't read. Lack of literacy, remember? Now, we've got We got this issue with the phone and Apple and the San Bernardino guy that decided to go and kill Christians for no reason whatsoever. They need to get into his cell phone, and they want Apple to hack them into it. And I said it's a slippery slope. Oh, we've got to do it this one time. We've got to do it this one time. Well, when you do that, you end up justifying doing it again and again and again. Well, you're going to find that that is, in fact, exactly what you are seeing here, because now we need to spy. We need to find out if consensual sex is going on. And I know you're supposed to be private. I know it's a private club, but what we want is more important than the privacy of the average person. For those of you that don't know, swingers are consensual sex parties. A Parker County Swingers Club could be forced to reveal the names of hundreds of guests as its late night at its late night parties. Randy Carter is being sued by his HOA for throwing a large late night parties that the neighbors consider a nuisance. This is where Randy Carter should completely destroy the list of everybody that showed up. Just destroy them. Destroy them. Dubbed online as the Naughty Neighbors Club, Carter's home is listed on websites for the swingers community with set hours and entry fees. And the neighbors are complaining that it's loud and there's lots of cars everywhere. Let me tell you what. Zoning is a ridiculous notion that is used to rob people of their basic rights. Look at it this way. You are allowed to have anybody at your party you want. If you're not having sex with children, you're not raping somebody, you're not breaking any laws, it is nobody's business who goes there. And you don't get to look at their special guest list just because you don't approve of their lifestyle. You don't get to look at their guest list just because you lost your freaking parking place and someone's playing the music too loud. There's a system here, people. Private is private. These are people's private lives. And if you do not think that they should be allowed to do these things, then that is for you to find legal avenues to stop. But using what is already the overreach of zoning laws to do it is not the way. Maybe it's time for you to realize that you live in America and that people are going to do things that you don't like. And you don't have any right to tell them what they can do and not do in their own damn house. How about that? Moving on before the Trump update, I told you we were going to do lots of things before your Trump date. DailyBeast.com, Pentagon research could make a brain modem a reality. Now, there's a few problems here. First of all, do you really trust whatever futuristic technology they come up with to not do anything internally to your mind? To not mess up regions of the brain that perhaps, we only know what 10% of the brain really does. We know what the sections do. That's not what I mean. But we don't really know how the processes work. You could very easily distort someone's reality irrevocably with the wrong kind of programming being put into a system if that system is wired up to your brain. And this is where I think McAfee has a chance in the libertarians of getting the election. Now, I know the bigger issue here is McAfee's virus killer never worked. You put McAfee on your computer, you were guaranteed to get a virus. So I can see where a lot of people might not trust him a whole lot. But this is where he's going to be able to reach people, because this kind of thing, I'm not sure it's such a good idea, friends. The Pentagon, who we all trust, is attempting what was until recently an impossible technological feat, developing a high bandwidth neural interface that would allow people to beam data from their minds to external devices and back. That's right, a brain modem. One that could allow a soldier, for example, to control a drone with his mind. And that's interesting. What happens when the drone gets hacked and the interfaces clash? What happens to your thinking process that could be irrevocably changed by damaging the way your brain reads certain information? Does this sound like a direction that you want to go in? And people say it can happen. People say it can't happen. Do you want to be the one to find out? Because I promise you I don't. This seemingly unlikely piece of technology has just gotten a lot less unlikely. On February 8th, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, that's DARPA, the U.S. military's Fringe Science Wing, announced the first successful tests on animals and subjects of a tiny sensor that travels through blood vessels lodges in the brain and records neuroactivity. Yeah, and maybe it usually goes where it's supposed to. And of course, that one time it doesn't. It lodges in the wrong place, and God only knows what it changes in your personality, in your physiology, in the way that you think, in the way that you act, in your emotions. Who knows? It's got to be safe, right? The Pentagon wants to do it. These so-called stentrode, a combination stent and an electrode, that's mean the stent, something inserted into your brain, is the size of a paperclip and flexible. The tiny injectable machine, the invention of neurologist Tom Oxley and his team at the University of Melbourne in Australia, could help researchers solve one of the most vexing problems of the brain modem: how to insert a transmitter into the brain without also drilling a hole into the user's head, which is a risky procedure. Now that they can do it with injections, they're saying the tiny sensors will into some unwilling livestock's veins, and for 6 months recorded the electrical impulses of the animals. So they've done this to livestock, and according to DARPA, Oxley and his fellow researchers plan to test the stentrode on human patients as early as 2017. There are some dangers, imagine that, associated with it. All stents run the risk of causing blood clots and strokes, so nothing like paralysis and trouble speaking for the rest of your life, just so you can play a video game with your mind. Oxley said that injecting the stentrode into a vein, which carries blood to the heart, rather than the artery, which carries blood from the heart, minimizes the risk of stroke. Yeah, so we probably won't give you a stroke. Even if the stentrode is fairly safe, it's not clear that it will work the way the military wants it to. Oxley said he still doesn't know whether the stentrode will be able to record the kind of fine data that DARPA would like its brain modem to handle. So we'll just experiment on people till we get it right. Sensors resting directly on top of the brain during surgery have proved recently that they can detect neuroactivity at a level of a single brain cell, but a stent might not be able to achieve the same level of precision. So again, this, if it seems insane to anybody but me, feel free to leave a comment. Again, I'm not saying it should be banned. People want to ban everything. I'm on record. This is a bad idea, friends. It's all about money, and we know how many of those things go. Let me know what you think. Would you like to have the brain motive brought to you by a great DARPA? Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. We're about to get into our Trump date, and we're also about to go ahead and move into the dumbie of the day. Before I do, I want to remind you about this wonderful place. Look here on FactCam. That'd be Sticker Junkie. Go to Sticker Junkie. Go here, and your stickers are going to look amazing, just like these people's do here on the page. When you check out, make sure you type in Correct Views or The Correct Views, and you're going to get a further savings just because you're a listener of the show. So by all means, friends, please go ahead and check out Sticker Junkie and let them know what you heard about in the front. You're going to love your stickers. Friends, that brings us to your Trump update. Let me get to this first in it. Brandon Tatum is a police officer in Arizona who has been won over to Donald Trump, largely because of the vile actions of the Trump protesters. And I was at the Cleveland rally, and I've been telling my friend Giselle the same thing, that it is not the Trump people at all who are causing the trouble here. The trouble is being caused by the agitators outside. They are some of the most vile, unkind people. Not necessarily the ones I spoke to. They were actually rather civil, but it took me some work to find civil ones. All right, listen to this man. We're going to let him speak for a minute. This is the end of it. You're going to want to hear the whole thing. It's on YouTube. Listen to this. This is the kind of thing that goes on at Trump protesting.
People be that crazy. It was crazy. It was crazy in there. And these protesters were extremely crazy. And of course, when they walked them out, they putting their hands up and acting like they're getting drugged or something. These people were really acting a fool. So, I mean, they were acting up so much, there was people in the crowd yelling at the police to tell them to go do something. And these people don't understand that all the cops run up over there and they leave this whole bottom part open. I mean, what are you going to do? And you know for a fact they'll be on CNN if they get to pulling on somebody too hard, because they're only going to capture the second half of it. They're not going to capture the first part of the person spitting and yelling in people's faces.
That's right. The protesters spitting and yelling in people's faces, dropping F-bombs in front of people's children. They are bringing the violence to the Trump rally. It is not Trump supporters who are violent. It is the protesters who are swinging. It is the protesters who are punching people. It is the protesters who are causing the problem, not the Trump people. And there is someone right there telling you about it. And as we begin our little Trump update here, Washington Post. Trump questions the need for NATO and outlines non-interventionist foreign policy. This is wonderful news. First of all, NATO is always dragging us into some BS that we can't afford and hurts our country in the long run. Second of all, I think it's important to note that I've heard people say they're concerned that Trump is going to be a warmonger. Whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, it's important that we are fair, is it not? Trump is not a warmonger. He's a non-interventionalist, almost to the level of Ron Paul. Not quite. He is against ISIS. But Trump wants to move our country's troops away from policing the rest of the world and let the rest of the world police themselves for a while. Let the rest of the world take care of themselves. Yes, if something like ISIS crops up and starts attacking the interest of the United States, even in foreign countries, then yeah. But this idea that we need to be the policemen of the world and that we need to get involved in every damn skirmish that happens is not going to continue under Donald Trump. Therefore, would you please stop telling me that he's a warmonger, because he isn't, you boneheads. Donald Trump outlined an unabashedly non-interventionalist approach to world affairs Monday, telling the Washington Post's editorial board that he questions the need for a North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which has formed the backbone of Western policy since the Cold War. In other words, the United States has been getting ripped off in epic ways since the Cold War, and Donald Trump would like to put an end to it. The meeting at the Post covered a range of issues, including media libel laws, violence at his rallies, climate change, NATO, and the U.S. presence in Asia. Trump said the United States must look inward and steer its resources towards rebuilding American infrastructure. That does not sound like a warmonger to me. He says, I do think it's a different world today, and I don't think that we should be nation building anymore, Trump said. I think it's proven not to work, and we have a different country than we did then. We have $19 trillion in debt. We're sitting probably on a bubble, and it's a bubble that if it breaks, he means the economy, it's going to be very nasty. I just think that it's time to rebuild our country. He added that as we built schools in Iraq, they're blown up. And that's one of the places we tried the nation build, remember? We built another one, we get blown up. We rebuilt it 3 times, and we can't build a school in Brooklyn. We have no money for education because we can't build in our own country. At what point do you say, hey, we have to take care of ourselves? So I know that the outer world exists, and I'll be very cognizant of that. But at the same time, our country is disintegrating, large sections of it, especially the inner cities. What about that is divisive? That is what we have been waiting for an American president to say for 100 years. And now that somebody's finally saying it, we don't like his tone. That is exactly what needs to happen. Get the hell out of every other country in the world and start taking care of us. For the first time, Trump also listed members of the team chaired by Jeff Sessions. Who's he want there to shape his policies? Keith Kellogg, Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, Waylon Fairs, and Joseph E. Schultz. Schultz worked with Reagan and did great things with him. And while talking about Russia and Ukraine, Trump said Ukraine is a country that affects us far less than it affects other countries in NATO. And yet we're doing all the heavy lifting, Trump said. We're not doing anything. And I say, why is that Germany's not dealing with NATO on the Ukraine? Why is it that other countries that are in the vicinity of the Ukraine, why aren't they dealing? Why are we, being Americans, why are we always the one that's leading? Potentially a third war with Russia. He's right. Get the hell out of this ridiculous notion that we need to meddle in every damn thing in the world. Trump said that U.S. involvement in NATO may need to be significantly diminished in coming years. God bless this man. Do you want your kids tied up in every country for the rest of your life? We certainly can't afford to do this anymore, Trump said, adding later, NATO is costing us a fortune, and yes, we're protecting Europe with NATO, but we're spending a lot of money. He wants to get us out of the Pacific to the degree that we are in it and question the value of massive military investments in Asia, and wondered aloud whether the U.S. still was capable of being an effective peacekeeping force there. After all, he says South Korea is very rich, and it is. Great industrial country, it is. And yet we're not reimbursed fairly for what we do. We're constantly sending our ships, sending our planes, doing our war games. We're reimbursed a fraction of what? And it's all costing us. So asked whether the U.S. benefits from his involvement in the region, Trump thankfully said he didn't think so. He said, I think we're a very powerful, very wealthy country, and we are a poor country now. We're a debtor nation. Trump cast China as a leading economic geopolitical rival, which they are, and said the United States should toughen trade alliances to better compete, as we need to, or we're going to die here. China has got unbelievable ambitions, Trump said. They feel very invincible because we've rebuilt China. Yeah, on the backs of the millennials that we opened the show with, on the back of Gen X's like me that never had a chance. They have drained so much money out of our country that they've rebuilt China. Without us, you wouldn't see airports and roadways and bridges. The George Washington Bridge in New York, that's like a trinket compared to the bridges that they build in China because we don't build anymore. We've had our day. So, I mean, let's check it out here. Willard Fairs, PhD advisor to the House of Representatives. He's a counterterrorism expert. Carter Page, PhD. George Papanopoulos, he's an oil and energy consultant, which is good. He's going to keep us out of these ridiculous global warming fiascos that try to tax us for things that aren't even happening. Friends, I'm very, very happy with many of the things Trump said and the people to which he said he's going to surround himself with. Kurt Nima, Prison Planet, Mexico attempting to subvert U.S. presidential election. Mexico is furious that America wants to take care of America. And they're whining and complaining and pissing and moaning because they are not going to be allowed to send us their criminals and keep stealing our jobs so that they can work people for slave wages. That's not going to happen anymore, which is why we like Trump. The Mexican government is directly involved in an attempt to subvert the presidential election of the U.S. They're giving free classes on how to become an American citizen with citizenship clinics. They've sponsored them all across the United States, and California wants to let people vote who aren't even citizens just because they have a driver's license. We have the Mexican consulate directly trying to subvert the vote and the will of the American people because they want to keep stealing our jobs. They want to keep allowing the criminals that they don't want to house to sneak into the country. Now, am I saying that everybody that sneaks into the country is a criminal? Absolutely not. But there are a high level of them. And we need to know who is coming into the country and why. Plain and simple. We also need to quit sending good jobs down there so that they can literally work people for slave wages and the people in this country lose jobs. Okay, this is not about skin color. This is about economy, friends. CNBC.com. The second GOP delegate says primary votes don't matter. So you've got somebody bragging about the fact that the way the Republican Party is set up technically means that your vote doesn't matter. And I think that's interesting because this is what I said when Ron Paul was cheated. And everybody told me I was crazy. That there's no way the GOP, the grand old Republican Party, would ever want to get rid of primaries. And I said, I bet they would. Let's face it, the Democrats, the superdelegates have stolen Bernie Sanders' votes. They've cheated the man. Well, let's see some more cheating going on because I've been covering the cheating that I knew was coming and has been coming since Trump blew up, and I made a big posting about it in December. And I also said what he could do to stop it. GOP delegates at the convention, not primary voters or caucus goers, choose the presidential nominee, another member of the Republican National Committee told CNBC after a similar proclamation last week by an unbound delegate in North Dakota touched off a firestorm. The man is bragging that your vote doesn't mean anything because they know better than you do. The people that run the GOP, they know better than you do. Well, let me tell you this, you little bastard. Do you know this? If Donald Trump is not on that ticket, I will not vote GOP. And I didn't last time. You stole Ron Paul off of me, and I voted for Gary Johnson. And I'll do so again if we again get our candidate stolen. People are under the misconception that it's the results of the caucus and the results of the primary that determines who becomes the nominee. In actuality, it's the delegates at the National Convention that are supposed to pick the nominee. Diana Orrick, a delegate from Nevada, told Donald Trump supporters on Squawk Box Monday, which again is why we need to see a rise of a legitimate third party in this country. And it needs to be the Libertarian Party because they're correct. Orrick's comments nearly mirror last Wednesday's remarks on the program from North Dakota and Curly Hogland, an RNC Rules Committee member. He went further, questioning whether primaries and caucuses should be held at all. He also talked about his proposed rule change to allow any candidate who earns at least one delegate to submit his or her name to be nominated at the summer's convention. Well, that wasn't what they wanted for Ron Paul, now was it? But now they want it. Now they want those kind of rules. Do you see how they change the rules of the game to suit what they want, to control you, to steal your say, to steal your vote, to steal what you want, to take it away from you because you don't get the pick? Going into this convention, they're going to try and do a lot of manipulation to try to keep Trump from becoming the nominee, Orrick said Monday. A lot of political operatives in the Republican Party are trying to take out Trump at all costs. All costs is going to be losing the election because Donald Trump is the only person who is going to be able to beat Hillary Clinton at this point. And she's got nothing to run on. He's a shoo-in to win this debate because the woman has nothing to run on. But we need somebody who's going to go ahead and bring change to the country in a positive way, in a way that helps the largest number of people, and that is Trump. That's why we're not voting any other way, GOP. Get that through your damn heads. As an example of what she called manipulation, Orrick referred to the controversy at the Republican convention in 2012, in which backers of nominee Mitt Romney raised the bar for how candidates could qualify on the convention ballot in order to avoid any symbolic floor votes for Ron Paul. In other words, they cheated Ron Paul and you didn't do anything. So they're assuming that you're not going to do anything this time when they cheat Donald Trump. While Romney's nomination 4 years ago was never in doubt, this year it could go down to the wire. A brokered convention in which it takes more than one round of delegate voting to choose the nominee appears likely. And that's just realistic, he said. Well, if they attempt to take Donald Trump away from the voters, I tell you what, if they steal this from him, I will not vote GOP. I will not. Who is on my comment line? Who will go and say this with me? Refuse. Utterly freaking refuse. If they cheat us, I will vote Libertarian, friends. And that brings us to the Dumdy of the day. The Dumdy of the day. Brought to you by Change Transportation. If you're if you're going to get a ride anywhere, do yourself a favor. Find out how much it's going to cost you where you normally do it, then call Change Transportation. Let the dispatcher know you heard about it from the correct views and you're absolutely going to love the rate you get. Paul Joseph Watson, EJ Dub, Prison Planet, social justice warriors demand their own indoctrination college and the power to fire cops. They want to dictate how and what they should be taught as if they are the teachers. They want to take common sense and throw it out the window. Students at the college should be allowed to hire and fire cops, according to the dumbass. I've never. Where do they find these people? Safe space students at Western Washington University have issued an extensive list of demands, which they should be thrown out of the college, is what they should be. Out, leave. How's that? Demand this, and then throw them out. Have issued extensive list of demands, which includes the construction of an entirely new college dedicated to social justice, as well as the ability to fire police officers who commit microaggressions. If they break the law, we have laws to go after them. You are not protected from microaggressions. For instance, when I flip you off like this and tell you to go to hell, I tell you to kiss my ass and rate the taste on Angie's List, there's nothing you can do about it. Learn that. The Student Assembly for Power and Liberation has published a petition which calls for the creation of a full implementation of College and Power Liberation, an institution that will be devoted to social justice, systemic oppression, and white supremacy. Well, there is no white supremacy going on in colleges, so your building would be empty, other than you idiots that go there. The group also demands a 15-member student panel to monitor, document, and archive all racist, anti-black, transphobic, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic, Islamophobic, and otherwise oppressive behavior. You are allowed to say things that hurt your feelings. You know what? Nothing happens to them. Nothing should happen to them. You are allowed to speak, and they are allowed to speak. You need to be thrown out of college, you useless bastards. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. No, we're not going to let students hire and fire cops because their feelings are hurt. And if you feel the same way, then make sure you make my feelings not hurt by donating to the show, which you can do at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. Every penny that you give to me goes towards a better show, and I thank you, friends, for tuning in. Good night. God bless.